I can teach anybody the business, like I shared with you with my experience in New York and the Series 7 and all that other stuff that kind of comes with it. But what you can't teach is to do the right thing, to care about somebody, to truly be vested in what they're doing and how they're doing it to make that difference.
All right, I have Aaron Boehm. He's the head coach at Summit High School, and he also owns a company called Copia Wealth Management. I've known him a few years now. He's a great guy. He gives back to the community and runs an awesome business. I want to see how all that comes together for him and how he helps his kids. So I'm looking forward to this meeting today, man.
Yeah, me too.
Cool.
Excited to be here.
All right, so first of all, tell us a little bit about your background first so we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, well, background, grew up in Oregon, Southern Oregon. Actually lived here in Bend in the late 70s, early 80s, and kind of an Oregon-grown kid, and loved sports as a kid, and it was one of those where I worked hard and did pretty well, especially soccer and baseball, but was never great. But I always wanted to kind of contribute to that, as I got a little bit older. So that kind of got me into the coaching world today. But kind of fast forward right through the financial track. I got my undergrad right out of high school. I actually worked in the World Trade Center 2 Tower in New York.
Yeah, wow.
For Dean Winter Reynolds, and that was a great experience, for a Southern Oregon kid. Go to Manhattan and work in, the hub of the financial world. And at that point, I learned a lot about the business, a lot of things that I loved about it, and obviously a lot of things I didn't like about it. So, 15 years ago, I was fortunate I was able to start my own firm, and now we manage, hundreds of millions of clients' assets, and we got a team of 5, and pretty proud as far as what we're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's so much to talk about, but mainly I want to talk about how your baseball career. You played in college, and you came back to Bend. Well, tell me more about how you connected in New York.
Because I lived in New York,
Right.
And that's a lot different than West Coast. So, what did you learn from that? How did that kind of give you a foundation in your business?
Great question. So in my industry, everything that you learn, both undergrad and grad school, and even passing all the series exams and whatnot that we had to do, it doesn't teach you at all about the actual business. And we'll get into the baseball side and kids and maybe more about the business.
Sure.
But what I really learned about New York, both good and bad, was really the value of relationships. And everything you do is about relationships. And I went to New York, just to learn as much as I could and try to make money. And everything that they tell you is, to do those types of things. I got stocks, I got bonds, I got mutual funds. You know what I'm saying? But the fact is that's not how it works. It's about relationships. And I worked for another company here locally for 10 years. Charles Schwab, great company. Custody my client assets there today. And they did a big change back in 2006. Here in Bend locally, there was 6 of us in the branch. The regional vice president came down and said, you, and you, I need to talk to you in the conference room. Aaron, I'll talk to you here in a minute. And I'm like, shit, what's going on? Because a lot of the guys that he had called in the conference room had been with Schwab for 30 years, right? I was the youngest kid, in that office. So I was probably, it was 06, so I was 30 at the time. Okay. So I had some experience in the industry, right? And obviously was doing well from Schwab's perspective. But needless to say, they went in and laid off everybody in that branch. And so this is a retail branch where clients can come in, they can make deposits, they can get advice, they can really do whatever they want. Well, they shut that down and promoted me to what's called the Schwab Private Client Offering. And so now I was exclusively going to work with clients that had $1 million or more assets at Schwab that were basically paying $10,000 or more in revenue. They now had access to me locally.
Oh, nice.
And I was their dedicated consultant. But for everybody else, here's an 800 number in Phoenix, and you were to call the service team. Well, I'd been at Schwab already for 7 years at this point, right? I had my grandparents, I had my neighbors, I had a lot of friends and family that were clients that I was to now say, hey, here's an 800 number. You're going to call Phoenix, you're not going to be able to help, I can't help you locally. So naturally what ends up happening is you end up helping those people anyhow, right? And I actually got burned by helping somebody and not generating revenue for the firm, right? So Schwab, as my employer, is like, you can't do that. So I said, you know what? This isn't what I need to be doing. I'm going to create my own firm, which I started to do that in 2008, and we implemented that fully in 2009. And I wanted to be fully focused on the client, right? Needs-based, really about the client. And to this day, we're a registered investment advisor, and we have zero minimums. And part of it is the story of which I just told you, of how that my prior experience was that, we had a full office. If you had 100,000, come on in, we're going to take care of you. To where now it was only $1 million or more. And we're fortunate because we have high net worth clients and we have sufficient revenue, but it's part of how we feel like we can kind of give back. Because if maybe you got 50 grand or 250 or 500, whatever that number is, it really doesn't matter. We now have a service and an opportunity where we can help these people in a meaningful way that they can't get anywhere else. Because most registered investment advisors like us have a $2 or $5 million asset minimum, and I totally get it. Revenue models and all those things, and that is important to us too. But it's also important for us to give back and be able to help other people in the same way that some of those high net worth people have access to. So that's kind of my history of New York. I was a fish out of water, wearing a full suit every day. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
To work in Portland for a number of years, to work in the Schwab retail office, and now, having my own firm for 15 years. It's super rewarding to be able to help people, but also help people within the firm as well. So my best friend is Lewis Bennett. He's my business partner. He's the greatest guy. He was a client first. He came from the golf industry. He was head PGA pro at Crosswater, Broken Top, and Tetherow by the time he was 27.
They do well in sales though, because
They're generally pretty good at talking to people.
Yeah, but I mean, more importantly, it's like he was at the pinnacle of his career at an early age.
Wow.
But it helped him, and it resonated with him too. Like, I want to do what you're doing. I want to help people in a meaningful way. I have a little bit of a finance degree. Can you help me? And I said, absolutely. Because my philosophy has always been in that I can teach anybody the business, like I shared with you with my experience in New York and the Series 7 and all that other stuff that kind of comes with it. But what you can't teach is to do the right thing, to care about somebody, to truly be vested in what they're doing and how they're doing it to make that difference. So I always feel that if you can surround yourself with people that truly care about people, the easy part's learning the business, and we can teach them that way. And so Jeff Grutzmacher, who's now a minority partner in the firm as well, retired fire chief, been in the fire captain for 17 years. And he's seen some serious shit. I've coached his son Henry for years, and we're going to baseball tournaments together. I'm like, Grutz, you good, bud? He's like, no, man, I got this wearing on me. I'm dealing with this. I'm like, you don't need to be doing that. He's like, I just want to help people. I'm like, you can help people in another way.
Yeah.
He's like, I'd love to do that. So I brought him on board, and now he's killed it the last 3 years. No industry experience, right? Got through the testing, easy.
Yeah.
But he truly cares about people and wants to make a difference in their lives. So now it's like, he's kicking ass.
Yeah. The technical side of our jobs, it's like there is a technical side of it.
Yeah.
Like you got to have knowledge in it, but it really is about, I want to help you.
You do.
And I'm going to structure, for me, I'm going to structure your loan. People quote, hey, I want to quote. I'm like, well, I just don't quote. I can give you 10 different quotes, in different ways.
Right.
I want to structure it to what you need, and that took a long time for me to click for some reason, just because of maturity or whatever. But now it's like I consider myself a financial advisor in mortgage and just helping them with that side of their money.
Yeah.
So so you run a team. Are you coaching a lot of your guys right now?
And I mean, to your point, you want to raise and create that culture, but we all have different roles. And we've had experience working in your industry too. And you've actually helped me out with some stuff to where it's like that needs-based approach. It even said, hey, look, let me help the client. Let me understand their needs. Even if I can't help them or if I don't have the best product, I might be able to identify it and then refer them somewhere else to make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that consultant type of approach, that needs-based approach. Obviously, that's why we have a good relationship. That's why, we can have a referral partner. But I do know that you do take the time to understand your clients and then find the best solutions for them.
Yeah.
So with my firm, there's 5 of us. I also got George Mendozona, who's a great baseball player, won a national championship with Oregon State.
Oh, yeah.
Adley Rushman's his best friend. It was a roommate all through college. Talks to Adley every day, which is a great guy.
They went on a run, man.
He did. He actually just showed up today for the Orioles. But But George, similar stuff. I hired him actually as my assistant infield coach last year. Got to know him personally. I'm like, here's a 25-year-old kid that's played high-level baseball.
Yeah.
That is an awesome human being that truly just is donating his time in the baseball world because he grew up in Madras poor, ended up graduating from Ridgeview, didn't have a lot of access to training and stuff like a lot of our kids do today, fortunately. So he just is simply out there to give back from his experience. I'm like, bud, why don't we do that in the professional world? Come and work for me. You're a guy that truly wants to help people. Again, I can teach you the business. Let's go out there and let's help other people in a different way. And now George has been with me now for 8-9 months at the firm, and he's killing it. He's doing an amazing job.
Yeah. So it's funny because that's the approach I take with loan officers. And like generally, like you probably see it in your industry, but branch managers are generally there to manage.
Right.
And even though I'm a branch manager, I look at myself as a business development leader for my people.
You are. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you should get help. Are you growing where you are? Because like if you want to grow, you need to be in the right environment. Right? I think maybe it's just our sports background. I don't know.
I think it is our sports background. Maybe we can talk about that because I'd like to hear more from your side. But that's part of just the balance of life too. Why we live in Bend, Oregon. Why we're wearing what we're wearing here. Coming from New York and working in downtown Portland. It just wasn't okay. And I know in your industry as well, same is true with mine, we can make a lot more money elsewhere. I mean, if we lived in LA, San Francisco, even Portland, Seattle, right? But that's not the balance that we're looking for. And that's not the culture, and that's just not who we are. And I don't think that's discussed enough, the quality of life balance. I think it's too much focus just on the X's and O's. And we're fortunate, obviously, and you know, we have successful businesses and all that, so it's probably easy for us to say. But again, being here, you know, is a priority. And just like coaching is a priority, and running the business is a priority, it's a commitment. Because one of the most common questions I get is like, how do you do all that?
Oh, that's what I want to get into because my kids are just 3 and 6, and I'm shaking my head like, because they're going to play sports and I'm going to run a business, and it's like, how am I going to balance it? And so
how are you doing with that now? I mean, even at 3
I'm
and
doing
6,
great now. You know, but they're not they're just about to start some sports right this fall or the spring. I think I'm just psyching myself out a little bit, but since it's new, and I'm 46. Right. I have lived my life a certain way, and now I'm going to have to rearrange things. But one thing that I'm super impressed with, and I'm not blowing smoke, is that there's a couple things that stuck with me is that I go, well, you know, you live in Bend, and you run a business, and, you know, you also coach, which is like super time consuming. And I'm in selfish mode because I only had one kid, and it was like 1 or 2 when we moved here. And it was, I just want to be outdoors and enjoy this outdoor activity. But what I'm finding now is I'm morphing into what you told me. Is like, you go, this is how I like to spend my time.
That's it.
And it didn't click with me back then because I wasn't as far along as you are. Now I am getting there. And now it's clicking. It's like, okay, well, maybe my purpose is to take all this experience I've had and help little kids.
Totally. And I would encourage you to do that. Because with that mindset, you can make a difference. Because everything that we do and how we allocate our time is all based on priorities. I don't care what it is. Some people have priorities to sit and watch TV for 4 hours a day. We probably don't.
No.
Right?
None.
We're running a business. You know, we're helping other people. You know, we're coaching, and we can get into more of that. But that's actually a huge requirement, and it's stressful in a different way. And that's why I love Saban's quote so much that if you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader. You know, sell ice cream. And I kind of relate to that in today's world and society, especially when it comes to coaching, because you're never going to please everybody, right? And that's fine. But if you're consistent and you surround yourself with the right people and you're doing it for the right reasons, what you'll find is that everything else will kind of come together. So don't stress and worry about these little things that are out of your control. But if you feel led to make a difference and you feel like you can make that difference, then we need more people like you getting involved and going that next level. No, it's funny. It just starts clicking, and all the things I swore I'd never do. I mean, it's just life in general. Like, I don't want to do that. And then you start doing it, and then it's like, well, I'd never do this. I'd never believe that. And then you change. And so now it's exciting because you start to see how your life evolved for a reason. I know I don't want to get too deep in everything, but you can get as deep as you want because this resonates with me, and you're 100% on spot with all that. The other piece of this, is the relationships we have with other people and just making sure that it's consistent with their vision as well. Because honestly, I couldn't do any of this without my wife's Katie's support, right? As far as running your own business, you know, running the team I do at the office, and then obviously coaching, because it's a huge commitment, right?
Yeah.
You need that support, and you need to get them involved. And we talk about relationships, and I think it's a word that's used loosely, like, oh yeah, I know it's important. Well, obviously it's the number one thing, but surround your people with the best people you can find. The relationships, you know, the most important thing. And I think that's the one thing that maybe I've done really well for whatever reason, long term, is somehow I've just surrounded myself with the best people, starting with my marriage with Katie and my family. But now my business, you know, Jeff and Lewis and Ben and George, I mean, these guys are guys that would do anything for me, and that I would do anything for them. Well, conversely, I got 10 staff coaches at Summit, 10, right?
Wow.
Each one of them have a different role and responsibility, but they
In
all
the baseball team, you have 10?
I do. We have
Whoa.
3 teams.
Oh, because that's right. You got like the freshman team, C team, whatever.
Yeah, and we got
it.
specific coaches for different roles, and it's all people that, you know, want to help in a meaningful way, that've got different experiences that can add value.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm able to do it and be successful because of them,
Yeah.
right? I can't do
sure.
this myself.
Yeah.
I can't run my business myself. I can't run a family by myself. It truly is a team. And I think just the communication and the value of those relationships, that's how you can bring all this in together. And when you build teams and when you compete either on a sport or in our offices or in the businesses, right? If you have that team mindset and you're working together, A, you're gonna be more successful, but B, you're gonna have a lot more enjoyment, and you can be rewarded for those efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, God, we could go on forever about this, but one thing I see in my industry, a lot of real estate agents and mortgage people say, I can't let go of the control. I got to control the process. And it took me a while, and it was probably 8 or 9 years ago when I just like hired my first assistant.
Yep.
And then I go, whoa,
Yeah.
this is crazy, because you're scaling it just with one person.
Yep.
And then you add another person. And then it's like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I can actually be creative, and I can meet more people or whatever. And then you're building. And then it's like, now the people, and it's the same with you. It's that I'm around all these people every day, and I love being around them. It's like a second family, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me, like, your experience with sports and the coaching, and basically it's the same thing. Do you feel like you're just running another sports team in a way? Because I say it like to my team, I go, I like to feel like we're a championship baseball team or something.
You do. I mean, family first. So, I mean, high school is different, you know, especially when you're a district employee and you're actually hired by the district to run a program. I mean, there's a lot of things. So I've developed kind of what I refer to as the 3 C's, and this is a very common thing that everybody in our program at the baseball program knows, okay? Classroom, community, right, clubhouse. Those are the 3 C's.
Clubhouse.
And the importance of those are really in that order. So if classroom's most important. So get your grades done, right? Do your work. You know, odds are none of us are going to be professional athletes, just statistically speaking. You want to embrace them, you want to encourage them, you hope that they will, but we know the odds are that none of them will. But your education is going to be critical, and it's going to provide opportunities and advancements for you in the future. So that's why you start with classroom first. Last year, my Summit baseball team, I use the word my because I'm kind of proud of what they did. We had the highest team GPA in the state of any sports program at any level. Okay, notoriously speaking, baseball programs do not have the highest GPA.
I know.
We had a 3.87 accumulative GPA at Summit, right?
That's
We beat out
insane.
Jesuit, we beat out all the golf teams, everything.
That's insane.
But if you focus on it and everybody buys into it, you can accomplish that.
Yeah.
Second piece is a community, right? Just like in Team Bundy or Copia Wealth Management or Summit Baseball. When you're in the community and you're wearing that Summit sweatshirt, you're wearing that hat, you better represent the program the best way you possibly can. Because how you act and how people see you act is how they perceive our program. So if you're being a knucklehead on the east side of Bend doing something stupid, right? Those Bend parents or families or whatever, or Mountain View, whatever that is, gosh, there's those Summit baseball kids screwing off again. So we talk about the community piece, you know.
And there's
we're
with
involved
social
in-
media, like you can't escape it. And I didn't mean to
can't.
cut you off, but
No.
I want to dive in and make a good point on
Yeah.
that, because, you know, we didn't have social media growing up, so
Thank
we could
God.
go
Thank
to
God,
the
by the way.
bonfire, drinking beer, and doing all the crazy stuff, and nobody would know. But,
Right.
but you know, when I got to college, it was driven into our head.
Mm-hmm.
You represent the University of Washington baseball team. You're
Right.
not just you anymore.
Yep.
And so that when you buy into that, that creates a really big team. Then we went to the minor leagues, the same thing. Like there's people out there that are out for you.
Yeah.
And people would get caught doing on accident and with women or bad
Everything.
people on accident. They didn't even
Right.
mean to because people were trying to screw them over.
Yep.
Right? And so, you know, you got to have that message that, you know, I've had people on my team that didn't fit because of their social media presence.
Right.
It didn't represent what we were doing as a team.
That's
And
crazy.
it was over.
Yep.
So,
And that's so important to the kids. They put such a high value on social media today. It's non-relatable to us, at least to me. I'm not a big social media guy anyhow, but we do have to have these conversations because these records are archived forever. And not only in the baseball world, but they always kind of think short term, but it could keep you from getting a job at a later date.
Yep.
Or having other
yeah.
opportunities for
Look what you
success.
did like 6 years ago. You don't even, you know, you make these mistakes as a
Yeah.
kid, but there's no margin for error
Yeah.
like we had.
So here's the cool thing about coaching though, especially the high school level, is you get to be like this coach and this mentor, but you also kind of have to be like this advocate for these kids. And I think this is where it's super rewarding for me. Like I had a kid that actually got busted drinking a little bit. He needed some advice. And he's like, how do I tell my parents? I don't know what to do, right? I got the call. And to me, that's like super rewarding. And that's how you kind of measure success. Yeah, we want to win state championships. Wins and losses do matter. We're going to compete. We're going to do everything at that level. But these are the impacts on lives that you can make on some of these kids that you don't fully recognize sometimes unless you're in it every single day. And that's just one example. You know, another kid that had a speeding ticket. It's just like, gosh, what do I do here? You know, so it's these life.
Better, yeah, it's better. Like sometimes they don't want to go to their parents
They
yet.
don't.
So you can tee it up.
But it's trust. They have trust with us, right? And I'm at that age to where I'm their age of their parents. You know, a lot of times.
Did you do that? I never did that with my coaches. I didn't have that relationship.
Not at all. But I don't
with
feel like we really needed to. But today it's different. Kids, I think the standard of expectation. I mean, I did a lot of stupid stuff. I'll speak for myself.
Me too.
Everything I asked the kids not to do, I did it. Right?
But that's why you're like, don't do this. Trust me.
But do it smart, take care of yourself and take care of your teammates, right? And that's part of the community piece, but that's also the clubhouse piece.
Yep.
Right? Because we're going to say and do some things that we're not always going to agree upon. We're going to make decisions. I'm going to make mistakes, starting with me. You're going to get thrown out at third. I'm going to send you home at some point when you shouldn't. You're going to be a little bit upset that I called a button run or a squeeze on that particular play, but there's a purpose for that. But we have each other's back. And, you know, I had another kid last year, awesome kid, shortstop for us, not going to use his name. Had a tough ground ball, should have made the play, makes it, we win the game, right? Just went down there and basically to a knee after the game, in tears, didn't get off the field. I went up to him and just say, hey man, I just want to let you know that I love you. And that's all I just needed to say, right? He knew he fucked up. Everybody in this team knew he screwed up. But guess what? The whole team followed me out there,
Yep. Oh, nice.
right?
Yeah.
And we picked him up.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting first team all conference, second team all state, and had a great year. But that moment in time, right, was tough.
Yeah.
And so you create the culture, and I have other examples, like we had to run a bunt play. We ran a bunt play too. We want to get the out at third, but couldn't. So we audibled, the play was at first. Well, it was the bunt on the first baseline, as you know. It's really the only time the second baseman ever covers the bag.
Yep.
Right? He missed his assignment. He didn't cover the bag. So obviously the guy was able to get to third. Guy went to first because there's nobody covering the bag. And same thing, he came out the field. He's like, I screwed that up, didn't I? I'm like, well, do you feel like you should have been there or not? He's like, well, I think so, but I'm not sure. I go, you know what? That tells me we need to do a better job.
Yeah.
Giving you the tools to make sure that
So you
that's
took
your
the
assignment.
responsibility as a
Absolutely.
coach. Yeah.
So guess what we did the next practice? We worked on bunt defense. And we wanted to make sure.
PFPs.
Yeah, well, we do PFPs 3 times a week. But the point is, like, you get the kids back and you can resonate with them. And sure, you're going to be tough on them too. And you kind of have to set those expectations. And trust me, I am. That's where George comes in and some of these younger, nicer kids, you know. But if you can kind of put it on you a little bit and just know that you love them and that you truly care about them. And again, relationships are most important. Sky's the limit,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for these kids. And they're not getting that at home a lot. And they're not getting that in social media either.
Oh yeah, I bet.
You know, and I don't like it because so many of them just value what they're doing and how they're doing it based on their social media presence. And And you played very high level baseball. Obviously you're a lot better than even what I was coming out of high school. But the game is to try to sign with the D1 so you can blast it on social media and let everybody know, like, this is what I'm doing. And the conversations I'm having is like, is that program right for you? Because if you go there, you realize they're cutting scholarship kids, and it might be a top 10 program in the country or whatever.
But they're bringing in a ton of people, and you got to make the team.
And you feel like you're going to make that team. But what if you came here, and what if you played for a couple of years here, and then they recruited you?
Yeah.
Now you're going to play.
Yeah.
Right? So just have a plan. Right? And here's an advocate of somebody that can kind of share some experience, that can help guide these kids, because some of these parents too are like, you need to sign with Oregon State, wherever they can, the biggest type of school, but that isn't necessarily the right fit. It might be for one kid, but it might not be for another. And I think that's the big thing that I'm dealing with right now with some of my higher level kids is like, unfortunately I'm involved with most of those conversations, but I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of them are making, is that they feel like they want to be able to get out in University of Washington, so they're displayed on social media, because to them, that's the ultimate success.
Even if it's not, so that's funny. And I'll just give a quick, it's, I don't know, 27 years ago or whatever it's been, 28 years ago.
Yeah, we're getting old.
Feels like yesterday. But my decision was easy, because there was some programs that people are like, why didn't you go there? Why didn't you go there?
Right.
And I'm like, well, I knew I was going to play.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have, there was, they needed catching. And it was also an amazing program when he had a top 5 recruiting class, which was super cool, right? But there were some programs that were recruiting that was like, Stanford's and, some teams in the South, and you're just like, big stadiums and all this stuff.
Huge,
But it was really about, I'm going to play.
Yeah.
They're going to give me a chance to play, and they were very clear about that, and I saw the opening.
That's awesome.
And it's like, well, it turned out awesome. Because I was also, close to home, and the guys that I played against all the time that I really liked, we were a class, and they're still my best friends in the world.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that you brought that up.
So that's why you need to get into coaching, because you need to be able to share that experience. Because a lot of coaches don't. And I think that's an important one, because that's a difference maker. You always talk about, what impact, what change can you truly make in these kids' lives? Want to make them better baseball players, want to win state championships. That's obvious, but there's more important things. I think it's kind of what you just talked about, because what I talk about is did these coaches care about you? Did they know about you? Did they know about your siblings? Did they know about, your parents and things like that? Which on my side too, I'll use Slater to Brun as an example. I hope I can use that on camera. Awesome kid, 4.0 kid, amazing baseball player. He's got it all. He's a junior. Everybody wants Slater. They love him physically, mentally, how he plays, who he is, everything, right? So he committed to Vanderbilt, which is one of the highest baseball programs in the country, right? But obviously Oregon State, everybody wanted him, right? So the conversations I was having, because there's new recruiting rules now that they can't talk to the kid actually till August 1st of their junior year.
Okay.
And so I talked to a lot of these coaches, prior about Slater. And none of the questions were, gosh, what's his exit velo? How fast does he run a 40? Does he have a plus arm? It was how's his relationship with his mom?
They want to see how solid emotionally
I know
he
he's
is.
got a twin sister. Do they hang out?
That's
What's
crazy.
your relationship with him? They already know how fast, how hard, how deep
They've
he
seen
can
him
hit.
play.
That's why we're having the conversation. But what they really want to know at the high level is, who is this kid? Tell me about the things I don't know. And when they show up, which D1 coaches show up to our program games all the time for varsity, and oftentimes the kids don't know it. They're, again, not looking at what your exit velo is, what your bite is on your slider, how far you hit that ball. They actually want to see you strike out. They want to see how you react, how you get your ass back to the dugout, and how you treat your teammates. Because you're going to fail. You're going to fail at Oregon State. You're going to fail at Vanderbilt. You're going to have struggles. How are you going to relate to that? And what type of teammate are you going to be when shit hits the fan? That's not what kids are hearing. Still.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I always talk about the mental side of everything.
Yeah.
Because it's like, sports psychology is super, I went through it. It was amazing, and it was game changing. But the intangibles of athletes, I tell people all the time, I go, it's not about talent.
Yeah.
Because Because if you're told you're talented your whole life, it's actually damaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because you don't think you have to work that hard. And so when you get to, I think you can get through college, okay, if you're very talented. But you see those guys that were, I played against some of the guys that I don't want to sit here and name names, but these guys are legit big leaguers, right? And then there was a bunch of guys that were legit amazing top guys hitting 30 bombs a year, fizzled out.
Yep.
Because they didn't have the intangibles. So they're like, I look at Chris Magruder on my team, like, he's not like a top level arm and power and all this, but he's a guy who got on base 26 times in a row one time.
Wow.
Like intangibles.
That's
Second
right.
round draft pick, average tools, but he played in the big leagues on and off for 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And it's like, that is the difference. And when I was in the minor leagues, you saw guys in the big leagues that, I'm sorry, but they were not physically talented.
Right.
But they showed up day in and day out. Orlando Hudson, you know him?
Of course.
So he's a guy I played in the minor leagues with, and he's an average tool guy. Maybe even below average in a lot of ways.
Right.
Worked his ass off every day in the hot sun. Nobody pays attention to what you're doing behind the scenes. The guy worked his ass off and just showed up focused. Look at his career. I'm like, and even the coaches were like, he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
He's mouthy, kind of a joke, mouthy guy. But he was got golden gloves and not MVP, but I think he played in a couple All-Star games.
Right.
We had an amazing career, and you just look at those guys and go, see intangibles, man.
Totally.
That's what separates the people in business, in life, in general.
That's it. And that's why you try to communicate these kids at an early age. And for 90% of them, it doesn't resonate with them, but you just hope that other 10%, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So my experience specific to that is similar age, a little bit older than you, but 94, Matt Smith, my best friend, Grants Pass High School, was the first player taken in the draft out of high school.
Are you talking about Matt Smith with Tampa? Matt Smith?
No, so Grants Pass, we can get more into his story, but he was the first high school player taken in the 94 draft.
Okay. Is he the guy that sat out the whole year? And
Nope, so you've never heard of him, which is getting to my point. Which is getting to my point. So he's drafted by the Kansas City Royals.
Okay.
Matt and I actually talked to George Brett. I remember this. It was June 2nd, right? 1994. Talked to George Brett, and they said, hey, we're going to draft you tomorrow, first round. We just want to make sure you're going to sign, because he had a full ride to Stanford to play football
I've heard this story.
And basketball. Or excuse me, baseball.
Yeah.
So Matt was an amazing athlete, obviously. First high school player taken in the 94 draft. Well, Richie Sexton, who I coached the last 8 years with, right? And the reason why I'm leading the Summit program today is because of him. He's been my mentor and has taught me a lot about what I know about the technical part of baseball. Was 600 and something in that same draft. Okay, you know Richie Sexton. He played 12 years in the major leagues. He's hit over 300 home runs, has over 1,000 RBIs, right? 600 and something in that draft. I think his signing bonus was maybe a couple $1,000. Matt, a couple $1 million. First player taken in high school, out of high school in the same draft, never heard of. The point is what you just made. Some of it's luck, but some of it's that tangible piece that you're relating to. And Richie was fortunate in that he just continued to grow. He grew 2 or 3 inches after he graduated high school, just got bigger and stronger. And mentally, he is just an absolute machine. Like, he is unfazed in so many different ways. And things that he's taught me that it just blows my mind. Now, physically, he's got it too. He's 6'8" and obviously an amazing athlete. But you just never know.
Yeah.
Jim Thome got hurt, first baseman of the Cleveland Indians. They called him and said, hey, it looks like you need to come up and play for the Indians a little bit. Had his opportunity and tore it. Just absolutely ripped it off. And so when Thome came back, it's like, well, it looks like you're learning how to play outfield, because we need to keep you in the the lineup.
Go to left field, right?
He went to left field. Yeah. So it's funny, because his first baseball game that he ever played, he had a chopper to the third baseman, which he tells me was like his shortest single ever. Like, it literally went like 7 feet. And the first game he ever played left field in was at Fenway Park in Boston.
Wow.
I'm like, oh shit, man. So you're shorted out of
you're like right up against the wall.
Yeah. Your shortest one is your first at bat. Your first start is at Fenway Park, where it's the toughest place to play. But I just love these stories. He was actually a better basketball player in high school, supposedly, than what he was baseball. He was a McDonald All-American, was gone to Portland to play hoops, but is also a great football player. He was state Washington football,
tight end,
basketball, and baseball. He's a wide receiver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at like 6'5" at that time, and was probably faster than everybody, and just...
He's probably one of those guys that gates, like the woof.
Yeah.
Oof, but he's running like a 4.5 40.
Yeah. But he's got mentally, and he did the work and did all
Yeah.
those things. And Matt's obviously a great athlete too, is using that as an example. But the fact is, at that point, you just never know.
You don't. The development phase is not. There's no linear phase, and I tell people that all the time. I'm like, you know, there's guys in 8th grade who were freaks. They got beards. They were hitting
Yep.
bombs, and then, you know, they were
Sure,
literally
yeah.
didn't make it till their sophomore year.
Yeah.
And it's the same with baseball. These high school kids, like, I felt bad for them in the minor leagues because I was out in my junior year, so I was more developed. Went through a lot more experience, and then you're looking at these kids, and they're like 18, 19. Second round draft picks, you know, and they're like away from their family, and it's like, man, they're not going to make it most of the time.
Right.
You know, and and they just don't develop either. So
Yeah.
you can be really good and then just not develop. And then there's people who just continue slowly over many years to get really good.
Yep.
So that's interesting.
But you got to get involved and just help them because they need that guidance, right? So
Yeah.
that kind of gets back into coaching, and why I encourage you to do it. You know, good people, and
Yeah.
you know, you got to do it with no motives for yourself, but with the single mindset of like, I want to help these kids out.
Yeah.
And I want to do it for the right reasons. You know, this is my 8th year now at Summit High School varsity. Just now, Nolan, my oldest, is just now in the program.
Okay.
So,
Freshman?
Yeah. No, he's a junior, but first year at varsity.
Gotcha.
If you will. But it's like not doing it for him, right? I've done it 7 years prior to he's even been on that team. And I'll
Yeah.
continue to do it, obviously, after he moves through that.
Yeah, so because a lot of people don't do that. They usually they're the teacher.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the self-vested, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people do it, you know, they serve their little league board and they coach because it helps their kid, and they continue to do it, but when their kid's gone, they're done.
Yeah.
Right? But that's where I'm just truly saying, like, you got to do it for the right of the community and use sports and to feel like you could really, truly make a difference at that level. And you got to be driven and motivated to do it solely on that purpose, because if there's any other motives, it just ain't going to work. It ain't going to work with the parents. It's not going to work with the kids. You
Yeah.
know, and all those other things. And business is exactly the same way. We want to make money, sure, we do. I mean, that's important. But you want to make an impact on people's lives, and you want to do it better and differently than anybody else. And I feel like we do that, right? So you got to be able to convey that. And that's why we don't market or advertise anything at our firm, because we'd be soliciting the wrong client.
Yep.
It's like, oh, your last year's performance was great, you know, or they're shopping for this or that.
Yeah.
No, it's about the relationship, that right fit, and understanding their needs, and then providing solutions. And I think that's true for you, you know, and so.
Well, it took me a while to,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, like, it's all development.
Yeah.
Like, it's never ending. You don't arrive.
No.
Right? So you look back and you're like, the thoughts I have now are totally different than even a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But it's like, my whole thing of this year is like, I'm not chasing people I don't want to work with anymore.
Right.
I did it as a transaction to make a living sometimes in some
sure.
cases, right? Now
Yeah.
I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because once you do something you really love, it takes on a mind of its own, right?
That's it.
If you just go, I don't have time for that,
Yep.
now you're going to have a transition where you're going to be like, whoa, it's like, did I make a bad decision?
Right.
Right? Because you got to replace that business in some way. But every time I make those leaps, it always gets way better. So that's how, that's what I'm going through. I'm like, I'm not chasing anybody anymore. It's not going to happen.
So on that, so what's your plan? What's next for you guys to try to, continue down that path?
Yeah, so for me, I want to, and you told me, gosh, like right when I moved here, probably 4 years ago, you said, I go, hey man, like my coaching program tells me, I'm buying a house, like what price should I be buying because I make this much money and there's a calculation. And you looked at me, you go, you shouldn't even be thinking that way. You should be thinking about who you're surrounding yourself with to make you better and make them better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What we're just talking about.
Yeah.
So for me, I run a team and I don't have a ton of loan officers, but what I see now in where I'm going is what you've done, is build out 5 loan officers who want to grow,
Yeah.
who want to be coached, and just pour into them and
Yeah.
give them all this information that I've accumulated over the years so it's not just about doing loans.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing loans, but I'm going to be choosy of who I'm working with and developing those people, partnering with them, and then developing a branch of really good, an A team.
Yeah.
So that's where we're headed.
Developing relationships and providing people, making a difference in people's lives differently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of back to the sports part.
Yeah.
Right? You're a sports guy, the team. So, like, one thing I see with the kids nowadays and why I push so much on this team piece is like you and I, we grew up. I mean, it's different today. I mean, and one thing I really realized now with these high school kids that it took me a couple of years actually coaching high school baseball to figure this out, is that life is actually really complicated for them. On the surface, you're like, shit, it's easy for you guys. I mean, mom and dads get you cars when you're 16. You show up to this beautiful school every day. You get to play in these amazing athletic fields. Everybody's great, good families.
Yeah.
But what I've realized because of social media and the pressures in this world, things aren't great. And it's a very difficult time for a lot of high school kids. And they can be influenced a lot of different ways. It's critical. There's more stuff exposed to them, and they have access to so much more at a younger age than you and I did.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
And I know I probably would have made the right decisions, or I don't know how I would have navigated through a lot of these types of things. They're dealing with some really heavy, real issues at a very, very young age. And so they're a little bit more sensitive, right? They didn't fight in middle school.
Yeah.
You and I said, hey, 4 o'clock, we're going to go here. People, and you would throw it out, right? And
Totally.
that's how, and then the next day you guys were playing dodgeball together.
Yeah.
And you negotiated through things on the playground, right? You kind of let things happen, just like you would in business.
How was that transition for you to watch it? Because this is going to be new to me watching my kids grow up, because we just fought. Like, you want to go? Let's
You kind of have to go through it. Not obviously condoning that, or but the fact is, like, everything is like, you can't say this, or you got to be watching what you're doing or what you're saying. Or
I'm worried about myself saying something bad, though. You need to coach me on keeping my mouth shut.
Hey, we have to cut this thing off because I'm the wrong one to ask on that. But the fact is, the sensitivity. But what happened was, you and I, we dealt with our own issues. We're accountable for our own mistakes, right? And at the end of the day, we're accountable to our coach, and then ultimately we're accountable to our parents. And I remember, playing soccer. Coach got mad at me, got my ass chewed, as I probably should. But I remember being worried, like on the way home. Mom took me home because the real ass chewing was going to happen when I got home.
Yeah.
My dad, because Coach got on me. That's not okay, right? But the real butt chewing, the discipline was about to happen. Nowadays, it's flipped. I get on you as a player. There's a coachable moment, maybe some accountability. You go home to mom and dad. Maybe not communicated accurately as far as the details of the situation, but it's like, hey, Johnny, don't worry about it. I'll talk to coach. I'll get this taken care of.
Whoa.
So it's really flipped as far as the accountability, right? And everything being aligned versus you and I negotiated, had to work through things. Now parents get involved. And that's
So there's
where
some coddling.
And that's where it gets, there's a lot of that.
It's like there's no, but that's going to hurt. Like, I'm always careful, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I can go sideways on my thoughts. But
Right.
my grandfather would be like, Great Depression, World War II. You guys are this and that, and call us weak and all this. And is it that? Because, we grew up okay.
Yeah.
It's different,
Yeah.
Now it's like, my kids don't go outside that much. I'm like, why don't you go play in the woods or something?
Totally.
Like, it's like, no, like you have to make a play date.
Yeah.
And people want to have a play date. And I don't mean to be mean, but I laugh.
Yeah.
What do you mean a play date?
Right. Can you just go out there and do it by yourself?
I don't know exactly. So this is all like, I'm coming into this.
Yeah.
And so what I
It's a
find
new
is my
world,
kids
man.
stay home a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out like how to navigate that. But I'm gonna have to learn it. But I'm worried. Sometimes I'm worried about me speaking up when maybe that's not allowed.
I think it is. I just think you be confident and be consistent in your messaging. And it's not always going to be perceived the way that you're intended to be. And like I said, you're not going to make everybody happy. If you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader. Don't run a business, right? Because we also owe it to ourselves to be consistent. And kids today are great, by the way. They're way better kids, I feel like, than maybe our generation in the things of which they're doing.
I've heard
But
this.
the things of which they're doing, in the way, anxiety, the issues, they're very thin-skinned a little bit. But a lot of it's also the coddling of the parents, right? You got to let things happen, right? And that's why, again, I talk about the classroom, community, and then the clubhouse. The clubhouse is critical.
Yeah.
Right?
Are they still doing stuff, goofing off like we did in the clubhouse and
They
stuff?
do, but it's differently. Because when a coach
hope so.
spoke, well,
we did some crazy stuff.
we did, but now, they want to post it on social media.
Yeah,
or-
and that's not good.
No, it's not. And they're just exposed to more risks. And I just want to try to protect them of that.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of them value themselves and kind of quantify that, if you will, based on how many likes they get on a post or whatever that might be, or what their social media presence is, or who they're hanging out with. And I'm sure that was prevalent when you and I grew up. I was just exempt from it, I guess, or maybe I just wasn't aware. I didn't realize who had a nice house or who didn't, or I didn't choose my friends based on anything other than the fact that they were just my friends.
Well, you're not on social media. I was on social media for years,
Yeah.
and then I said I'm done.
Yeah.
For like the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you could look at my posts, very little.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, well, the world's changing. Let me get into this a little bit. And I'm telling you, if I didn't realize that most of the stuff is just people giving their best, they don't show their bad side, right? Where
That's
it's
right.
like these kids don't have the tools that we do to navigate that emotion.
They don't.
I can go, wow, that guy's in Hawaii and they have a perfect family and a perfect business and they look great, and and then you go, well, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I'm 46.
Right.
And if I have that emotion, what is a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old thinking
Yeah.
when they don't have the experience to go, that's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's that, but again, sport and these kids playing together, that's where they're negotiating with each other. That's where they're migrating through some difficulty issues. You're trying to earn a spot, you're going to be a good teammate, but obviously you want to beat this guy out too, right?
Yeah.
So that does it. I think athletics are more important today than they've
Really?
ever been. I know that I wouldn't run a business today. I certainly wouldn't be running a baseball program if it wasn't based on my experience, right? Stacy Morgan was my high school baseball coach, recently passed away. And I truly believe that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here today, certainly not a baseball coach, right? He inspired me. Like, he was a great example of what I wanted to be. And now when I coach these kids, it's like, I want 60 other future coaches, right? You want them to have that same, feeling, and not trading their path and tell them that's what they should do or whatever, but you want to give them those opportunities. You want to make an impact on those lives.
That's awesome, man. That's why I had you on here, because I
Yeah.
just want to hear about it, because I'm getting there and I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Feeling the evolution of like, okay, well, hey, maybe the universe is taking me a path for a reason, and I'm not so selfish anymore. Now that you have kids, it makes you less selfish, obviously. But it's super cool to hear your story, because it's helping me.
Well, and you got to do it because you love it, right?
Yeah.
You got to make a difference. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing. Same thing I tell the kids. Like, high school baseball or high school sports, I feel like in general right now, is the highest, most competitive level of the true sport, right? You get in the...
Baseball is?
Well, I think just any sport, because college now with the NIL.
Oh, yeah, okay,
right?
yeah.
There's motives there. There's agendas there. You truly play high school sports because you love the game. You're only out there because you want to be with your teammates, you want to do the best you can, and you love it, right? Any level above high school, it kind of dilutes that a little bit.
Yeah.
You have different people playing it for different reasons. Now, there is a lot of people that are just continuing to do it because they love it. And even at the major leagues or the NFL or the NBA.
Well,
or
the
whatever
minor
that
leagues is where you see the big difference. It's like, you better love baseball.
Yeah.
Because your
It'll
teammates...
weed you out. That's right.
Because your teammates, most of them don't like
But
you.
not of them all do. A lot of them do it for the paycheck.
Yeah,
obviously, at
yeah,
that point. But high
yeah.
school, they're all there because they love it. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together.
Yeah, it's awesome,
You
man.
know, and so if you've got that, and everything else that we talked about, then you'd be a great coach, because
Yeah.
the best coaches aren't the ones that played necessarily at the highest level. I would argue the best coaches are the best motivators, and the ones that have the most personal vested interest in each individual kid, not just the best players, which is easy to kind of migrate to those kids. But what about that freshman that barely made the freshman team, Because every one of these kids, like you and I, have got something going on
Yeah.
in their lives that nobody else probably knows about.
Yeah.
And with our age and experience, it's one thing I've learned about my clients in the business world, within my own family, and certainly within the baseball program, is like, you got to be careful, because there's some real issues out there that we're not aware of. A lot of people are gone with, and I'm very sensitive to youth and kids, particularly high school, right? There's a lot of shit going on over there, a lot of non-positive stuff too. There is a lot of positive and a lot of great stuff, but a lot of these kids are heavy burdening some stuff.
Yeah.
And so athletics is their only out. And sometimes you as a coach might be the only friendly conversation that they get to have with an adult all day.
Yeah, that's
They're having trouble in school, they're having trouble at home. And some it's not exempt from poverty and the free lunch program and the fan network program. It's not much of just affluent, wealthy white kids. It's not.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big
yeah.
misconception there. Now, there's certainly some of that, for sure, but there is at every school. But
Yeah,
they
that's
all
true.
deal with it, and they all have their own issues.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And as I gotten older, that I'm looking back at the high school, like I think about like, oh, this girl had that going on, or that guy had that going on. The empathy now is greater because I can look back on them like, well, God, these people, like nobody helped them.
Yeah.
Like teachers like some, it's just different.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunity to help these kids. So that's really cool that you do it.
But they need that because the phone's not doing it. It's not a connection. The way to kind of share and receive
It gives you
information.
anxiety. Probably gives them more anxiety than anything. Man.
Well, I think it kind of goes up to those expectations, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I need to play to this or I need to be that. And I've done that, right? It's just,
I think we all do, but man, but we have the life experience to kind of check ourselves and go, God, I'm starting to go down that path.
Right.
Right. And they're just raw.
Yeah.
They're getting formed in
That's
it.
why you just got to make a difference. And baseball again is important. Wins and losses are important. But sometimes there's more important things that are with that. And honestly, that's why I love doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's probably better X's and O's baseball coaches. There's probably better motivators. There's probably way more qualified guys to run a baseball program than me. But I think when you look at what I do and how I care about the kids and how I go about doing it, I hope that everybody would say that I'm the right fit.
And surround yourself with people maybe that because I honestly
Bingo.
like a baseball. Like,
I got the 10
I'm not
best
good at that.
assist- I got the 10 best assistant
They
coaches.
can plug that like, hey, in this situation, because
Yeah.
I'm like situational baseball, like that was one of my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Totally.
I'm not the guy to be coaching.
Right.
But what you're
Your
talking
team.
about, yeah, that's
and it's
awesome.
us, and it's us together, and then the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Create that
Awesome.
culture where they can just,
Yeah.
create that culture of like positivity, but also work ethic and accountability.
Yeah.
All that's important because some are getting that at home, but some aren't.
Yeah.
Right? We look at each other in the eyes. We communicate candidly. We share stuff that we're not expecting you to share, with people outside of our clubhouse. So we're kind of teaching them those skills as well. And these are true life skills that are going to help them navigate in life because COVID was bad too for a lot of the youth and high school kids. And even just kids simply shaking your hand and looking you in the eyes, the things that are simple and just common for us, it truly is difficult for a lot of these kids today.
Interesting,
And
yeah.
it's very difficult to relate. The other thing I would kind of add to that's one difference, you kind of brought this up earlier, is that the harder you push the kids nowadays, the more they go the other way, right? So our coaches, at least when I was in high school, Stacy Morgan, who I love, shared that, they would chew our ass, right? You knew if you made a mistake, like, here it comes.
You're like, teachers aren't supposed to swear.
Oops, it happens. But the fact is, they're not very receptive to that because they're a little bit thinner skinned in some ways. And so they tend to go the other way. So you really have to focus more on the positive side and find what triggers each
Redirection.
one of these kids individually. And so if I'm managing a team of 14 kids on the varsity roster, we have our coaching strategies and how we're communicating. But how you customize that to each one of those 14 and how you kind of push their buttons and how you motivate them and how you set expectations, standards, and accountability, it's different.
Interesting.
And so you really, like you in the business world and like me as well in the needs-based approach, the same is true with coaching.
Yeah. No, man, this has been awesome. I've learned a ton. And just the small amount of interaction we've had over 4 years, which isn't a lot.
Yeah.
It's like there's like you've taught you've given me nuggets, right? And you've got me excited about coaching now because it's because I'm like, I don't want to coach because maybe I'm not qualified now because it's been 20 something years since I
Right.
played baseball.
Yeah.
Even if I played at a high level, I don't know how to coach. What do they hit? Dip and drive? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like, what's the angle of launch angle and all this? I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm excited. And is there anything else you want to go over? Because I think we covered a ton, man.
No, just to that point, like, were you qualified to start your own mortgage company?
No.
But you learned it and worked your way through it, right?
I developed.
And you built a team.
I developed it.
So mentors are critical in this industry. Like Richie was my mentor, right? He was our head coach, for years. We coached together for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So I was just soaking in everything he did and how he
Gotcha.
did it, right? I have
Okay.
my own way of doing things, but you kind of learn these kind of things.
Yeah, just like any other development, you're jumping in, taking
Just
a little.
like I told you about
Yeah.
Lewis and Jeff and George and Ben in my office, I can teach you the business. What I can't teach you is the care and want to do the right thing and the drive and everything that comes with that. Same is true with coaching and baseball. If you truly care and you want to make a difference, I can teach you the X and O's.
Yeah.
We can talk about cuts and double cuts, relays, first and third defense, bunt defense, rotations, whatever it is that we want to talk about, launch angle, but more it's the attack angle.
I don't even know, man.
Launch angle is the angle at which the ball comes off the bat. Attack angle is the angle the bat comes to
Yeah,
the plane.
yeah. See that?
But
there
see,
you
I
go.
can teach you that if you truly want to learn that.
Yeah.
But the point being is that if you have that drive and you want to do it for the betterment of not only your kids, but for others,
Yeah.
you want to make a difference and it's part of your lifestyle and it's consistent with everything that you're doing and it feels good and your wife supports it, then do it. But if it doesn't meet all that basic minimum criteria,
Yeah.
then don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
So
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
appreciate it, man.
Right on.
Yeah, cool.